Hello, everyone. Dominic Caminata here, owner of Grosso University, here with another action-packed educational webinar. We appreciate you taking time out of your day to invest in your education. I'm here with a very special guest. I'm actually have the pleasure of talking to the CEO of Leap, Patrick Fingles. And we were talking before this webinar, and we have a very similar background in terms of how we entered into the industry that I'm going to ask for him to share. But we got a very content-rich webinar, and we got 35 combined years of experience, or almost 40 years combined years of experience in this business, really gaining trust with homeowners in a lot of different aspects. And we're going to share all the things that we've learned in our careers pertaining to, of course, technology, strategies, tactics, all the things that you can be doing as a home improvement company, and of course, a sales warrior to better build trust with the prospective homeowner. So Patrick, I just want to say thank you for taking time out of your day, of course, to bring this wonderful information to our audience here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. We're coming out of winter out here in Maryland, and sun's been shining, so it's a good time. It's a good time of year for us.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much, Patrick. And I just kind of want to open it up. I didn't realize you and I have a very similar background, and obviously it's an honor for me to carry on the Grosso torch, the Grosso name. But it still floors me how many people were influenced by the Grosso methodology early in their career. So if you don't mind, briefly share like your entrance into the industry, how that took place, and when you first got exposed to the Grosso methodology.
So I was like a lot of people outside of the industry, 20 years old. I was delivering packages down in Washington, D.C., working for a courier company, hustling, pressure washing decks on the side, trying to make extra money. And, I had a buddy of mine that started selling windows, at this company. It was a pretty big company. They operated in like 4 or 5 states, canvassing model. And it was like, they had a big referral program. Like, hey, you got to get over here. You got to get over here. You'd be great at it. You'd be great at it. I guess I got a big mouth or whatever it takes, honest face, right? So to speak. So I went over and I started. But the unique thing that I was sharing with you before we started this call is it was funny. The company was going through the Grosso training. Like my first day at the office was down at the Sheraton, Baltimore, where they had closed the company for I think it was a week, at least a week. It might have been 2 weeks. They shut the whole company down, brought all the salespeople in, it's 60 or 70 or 80 salespeople sitting in the classroom. All the managers had to participate, and we were all going through, and Rick was there, and he was teaching us, the Grosso methodology. So that was my training into the company, which I don't think, the history of the company hadn't been that. You would come in and your manager would train you or whatever. So, as we got on here, I was like, I definitely have some experience with that. So that was a cool time.
Yeah, so very similar to my experience. I actually started at Mad City Windows in 2010, and that was my first sales gig ever. And they had just gotten done going from a complete storm restoration, chase and insurance claim type roofing organization to going to complete 180 now to a retail sales organization following the Grosso system. And unfortunately, it was a bunch of salespeople that refused to embrace the one call close. As a matter of fact, their top salesperson, one of his last words before he had to be let go was one call closing will not work in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I was actually one of the first new hires, kind of this new era in the organization where they follow a step selling sales process following a one call close. And everyone knows my story, but we grew that to one of the most successful, profitable organizations in the business very quickly. So it definitely does work. And of course, one of the core foundational elements of a sales methodology that works is being able to build trust with a large variety of different people, all walks of life, different personality types. And the system, of course, plays a big role in that. But of course, I'm talking to the CEO of Leap, and those of you that don't know about Leap, they're quickly becoming one of the most dominant platforms for companies to go paperless and literally integrating anything you want into one dashboard, one platform, from your masterful in-home presentation, your pricing and proposal tools, all the other software you need, such as Eagle View and financing companies. Everything can be integrated in one platform. And it's one of the optimal ways for a company to go paperless. So those of you watching, if you're currently still using a 3-ring binder, I'm going to slap you afterwards. It's time to get with the times and start embracing this technology. And that's part of what we're going to talk about here. So Patrick, I just wanted to tee it up and ask you, because before we were getting on this webinar, we were talking about how important technology, transparency, all these other things are to effectively build trust today's day and age and separate yourself. I guess you tell me, what do you feel are some of the most important elements, how technology specifically can help companies be able to more effectively build trust with the homeowner?
So look, there's two things that you have to think about. There's the consumer facing technology, and then there's we call it back office technology, right? So a lot of the things you mentioned, pricing, proposals, that's all your consumer facing technology, but equally important to a good customer experience, which is the foundation of trust and establishment, is your back end office. That's your production process. So, you need to use technology through the whole thing. And I just love this story. And I think it's the case study that fits our industry best. I've shared it on stage at Top 500 and time again, but there's always new listeners out there. And I just want to talk about Uber because I just love the business. So if you think about Uber, hey, this is the awakening here. The home improvement industry as a whole doesn't have the best reputation. I mean, getting a remodeling project done, whether it be a roof, windows, even a one-day bed, it's not a reliable experience. No. There's nothing easy about it. Like if you ask a homeowner that wants to get a home improvement project done why they haven't completed the process yet, number one response is, I haven't gotten around to finding somebody.
Yeah, I just had my master bath redone. And first of all, it was a pain in the butt, like to your point, trying to find anybody that could do it. And then once I found the companies, and I'm gonna get a lot of phone calls, people trying to sell me stuff after this, but it literally took me over a year to remodel my master bath, meaning that it was gutted, completely abolished in shambles. And over a year later, we finally got it put back together because of how unorganized the whole experience was. Yep. There wasn't a lot of the simplicity and transparency that obviously we talk about here, but I can relate to that experience. I was actually down in Jacksonville for another Grosso event, believe it or not. And I had this guy come up to me at the bar, no joke, because we're there at a home improvement event. He's like, you guys work with home improvement contractors? I'm like, yeah. He's like, literally, I have $500,000 burning a hole in my pocket to get my house remodeled, and I can't freaking find anybody to do it. Can you help me find somebody to remodel my house? Yeah. Like, just looking at that as an example, it's just crazy how disorganized.
So it's really, really hard. So, I think like when you look at our industry, I think the satisfaction rate was probably comparable to the cab industry. Yeah. So if you take cabs and take home improvement contractors, there's so many similarities. That's why I love the Uber case story, right? Cab drivers, traditionally, they had their cars, they had letters and wraps all over them, signs on the top to try to establish credibility. Mm-hmm. They had the meter inside. They have like the bulletproof glass. They have to get a license like many home improvement contractors have to get. They would display that license in the little clear window when you got in the back. They had the credit card terminal. They even had the little slot that you could put it through just to try to show you're protected. Now, all of that equals a pretty dissatisfied experience. I mean, you get in the cab and the guy's like, hey, I'm going to do this one off the meter for you. I'm going to give you a good deal, right? So Uber comes out and they build technology. Now there's back office technology and then there's the consumer facing technology. We all know the app, right? We all know, I'm trying to show my iPhone, but I'm on green screen. We all know the app. And, that's all we experience. But there's this massive thing happening in the back that organizes drivers and, takes on new drivers and does payments and billing and financing to make sure that reliable experience we have. So Uber does this, they come out, and now people feel better about getting in a stranger's Honda Civic, like some 24-year-old kid's Honda Civic, and getting in that thing and getting a ride with your family to the airport versus calling a cab with all those letters, all those licenses, the bulletproof glass. So that shows you how you establish really how technology can really serve as the foundation for building trust because it's transparent. I can see exactly where my guy is. I can see exactly when she's picking me up. I can see exactly how much I'm going to pay them. I mean, I'm just, it's like it's safe. Yeah. It's safe and it's reliable and it's transparent. So with home improvements, I love home improvement contractors. I am one. And, I say that, we're tolerated. Every other industry has come up to speed. Imagine if you went to Nordstrom's to like buy a pair of slacks and like you walked in, you're like, hey, how much are these pants? And they're like, oh, let me go see if I can get you a price. And they never called you back. Yeah. Or like you went to pay them and they're like, hey, we only take cash, or it's like, yeah, we'll take a check, but leave it under your doormat. We'll pick it up on Monday. Like, I mean, there's no other industry that's kind of tolerated to operate the way contractors do. And I think the reason is because we're craftsmen. Mm-hmm. Because we do have the skills. Like your bathroom project that took a year. If you've ever met a contractor that's out there running a business in the traditional way, they're trustworthy.
Yep.
They are reliable. They're reliable to families and wives and their kids, and they work hard and they show up to it's just disorganized. It's chaos. I mean, you're trying to wrangle materials. You're trying to wrangle your labor to show up. You're trying to get your salespeople to do what you need them to do. At the core, like I've been cut down with online reviews in my 20 years of roofing experience by people that would just put me on blast. I mean, cut me into the soul and tell me that I should be like, I'm a con artist. And I'm like, I don't feel like a con artist. I work so hard. I mean, I love my family. I go to community events, and we do I try to be great to my employees. We do everything we can, and you get cut down because when that experience becomes unreliable from a homeowner that's getting home improvements done, they just can't take it. I mean, it's just not a good experience. So when a bathroom takes a year to get done, it's not because that owner doesn't care, is not competent, doesn't have good employees. It's because there's a disorganization happening there. There's an unreliability internally. So I'm a huge advocate for software because software can solely solve that. I mean, you can get there through manual paper and process and organization in a small company, but to really compete and run your business, one that establishes trust with the homeowner because it's reliable, simple, and transparent, and that's where trust is created, reliability, simplicity, and transparency. You're doing yourself a huge disservice if you don't use software. And I know that sounds biased because, of course, I own a software company, so I'm going to get on here and preach software. No, it's a fact. It's a fact.
Yeah, actually,
I like going into a restaurant that has toast, and I can just scan with my phone, and I'm out the door, and I can pay with my Apple Pay. If they're like cash only, I'm like, I don't have any cash. That's ridiculous. I'm frustrated. So it is. I mean, software it definitely can serve as the foundation for a modern day business.
Yeah, back when I was a sales leader at Mad City, we had a great deal of post-sale issues that caused the job not only sometimes to cancel early, but to be completely left in shambles at the end because salespeople don't always have the greatest penmanship and they don't have the greatest attention to detail. So literally trying to translate their chicken scratch on these paper contracts. And obviously when salespeople get to that stage in the close, it's like, how fastly can I get the hell out of here and squeal my tires to go to the bar or whatever it is? I got a hot date. Yeah. So they're missing things, their colors are left blank, or they're making all these false promises, selling things off the menu. So it became a production operations nightmare. And a lot of times, because the customer doesn't know exactly what they're getting, they don't have that transparency, that clarity, they call the next day and they cancel. So there's obviously an issue where retention can suffer, the back end of the business can be completely abolished, and then transition now into this new era of technology. It forces salespeople to be more polished and organized, to have more clarity and transparency. You can't sell things that are off the menu, make all these ridiculous promises doing things that we can't physically do as a company, right? Let's stick to the menu, what we can and cannot do. So this is part of what I'm gonna talk about, actually mean what you say and say what you mean, and don't make all these ridiculous promises above and beyond what's possible, right? Yeah. So technology really cleans up all that stuff. And I just seen it being such a game changer, just from the whole organization and transparency and reliability, and just making sure that salespeople stay in their lane and they're selling things that can be done and should be done. Part of my problem with my bathroom project too is all the supply chain issues going on. There was actually just some pulls from my pull-out drawers in my vanity. One of those took 9 months to get, and they discontinued the finish, and it was just one thing after the other. Yeah. But like you said, these contractors have good intentions, not because they're bad people. It's just if you're unorganized in the beginning, it's going to cause all kinds of problems in the back end. Yeah,
I heard a statistic a long time ago that said 8 out of 10 people would not recommend or reuse their contractor. Now, I hate quoting it because I don't know the source of the statistic, right? But I just remember it was swirling around. But when I step back and think about that, if you have a dinner party, you invite 10 people over. and you say, hey, who's all 10 of them have completed a project? Say, hey, who would reuse the same person or recommend the same person? You probably expect to see about 2 hands goes up. So 2 hands go up. So I think the 80% statistic makes sense. And it's not like when you show up and you look at your neighbor's kitchen that just got done, you're like, oh my God, your kitchen is so nice. Who's your contractor? We want to do ours.
Yeah.
And they're like, they go like this. They're like, listen, definitely use them. And it's either the recommend with caution, you're going to have to manage it, you're going to have to do one of these things, or it's a can't recommend them. It's never the finished product. The kitchen's beautiful.
Right.
It's the communication.
Yep.
And it's not communication as like that contractor doesn't answer the phone. It's the missed deadlines. It's the, this came in, the truck broke down, the whatever it was. And there's a lot of truth in it. And there's so it's just this, again, it's just this breakdown of unkept promises throughout the experience. Again, the craftsmanship is good. That's what's there. And I think that's why it's tolerated, right? I think that's why it's tolerated in the industry, because when you need somebody to come out and do that work for you, you got to get a roof, you got to get windows. Like you need somebody that can do that work. And so you're dealing with a select group of people. So what you really are looking for though is, where you can really become a super contractor. So, I don't think it's expected from homeowners. I don't think it's expected from homeowners for contractors to conduct their business in a professional manner. They want their craftsmanship to be a pro, but I don't think the expectation is for the contractor's business to be professional.
Right.
However, that expectation is just because they just years and years of not expecting it. So when it's present from businesses that are out there, when you go online and you fill a form out, or you can just go on their website and they're like, hey, chat to set up your appointment. And you're like, chat to set your appointment up. And you get an appointment reminder with a picture of the person that's coming. Instantaneously, you start to feel like, could this be different? Could this be different? So it really starts with that, you think about that. I mean, obviously you have to be, not everybody's a professional, as far as their craft, but vast majority of the people that are listening to your webinars and, are trying to sign up for my products, I mean, they have that done. I mean, they know how to do the craftsmanship, they know how to do the work, or they know how to hire somebody to do it, right? They know what quality looks like. It's, can your business be professional?
Right.
Right. And what does that look like?
The automation. I'm a really big fan of that. Companies that have all those touch points of communication before, during, after, and throughout the entire from phone call to install. Because that was a big issue that I noticed in my career, where the homeowner, no one talked to them for like a month or like 6 weeks, no communication, and they're panicking because nobody's telling them what the heck's really going on. So having all that stuff built in with your technology, and of course that just sets you apart. Being able to differentiate in this industry is actually easier than it is in most industries. To your point, is they're not expecting that a contractor is going to come in and be so well spoken and so well trained, so well organized with the right technology. They're expecting Chuck in a truck. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Now I do see that starting to change a little bit, especially with the influx of private equity and all these billions of dollars being poured in our industry. So the 2 biggest investments these PE firms are making is training and technology, because they come from other industries where that's a norm. And we're about 2 decades behind in our industry. Now you see a lot of these companies starting to embrace technology more than ever before. And surprise, surprise, is turning into some of the fastest growing, most successful and dominant businesses in this industry.
Yeah, I think the industry in the past has always just been predicated off price. Yeah. I mean, that's why, what do you get 3 estimates on? You go to 3 grocery stores, get a gallon of milk. Right. Like you want to get steaks for dinner, you go to 3 butcher shops to check the price on them. Like, hey, these porterhouses look pretty good. I tell you what I'm doing, I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna go check out this other butcher shop all the way across town, see what the price is over there, call around, do some research. No, you just buy them. I don't know where you get 3 estimates. It's only us. It's like this archaic process that I don't know. And it's so funny, man. It wasn't always present. It used to be you lived in a small town, the toilet was broken. You call Herb. Herb comes over, he don't even give you a price, fixes the toilet, sends you a bill 2 weeks later. You give him a glass of milk on the way out the door. I mean, that's what I pick small town living as from a home improvement standpoint. Yeah. And then somewhere along the line, cities just got bigger and bigger. And then there was just Herb, and then there was John. And John was like, I beat Herb's prices. And he put it on his storefront. Then you call John, you're like, well, you said you beat Herb's price. What do you think his price is? And then this whole ridiculous process begins for homeowners where they have to get 3 estimates. Now I always ask homeowners, they say, I got to get 3 estimates. I say, what do you do? Which one? Let's say you get 3 estimates, you hate all of them. Which one you buy from? Like, you don't have to get 3. You get 4th estimate, you get 5 estimates, you get 6. And you're going to keep getting estimates until you find somebody that you trust.
Yep.
And you're going to hire that person. It doesn't have anything to do with 3. It could be the 1st estimate. It's not predicated on a count or a quantity, right? So I think the process is ripe for change. I mean, nobody wants to do that. I mean, my wife doesn't even go to the grocery store anymore. I mean, everything we buy is like a click of a button. Who wants to get 3 estimates on their bathroom? I mean, it just seems crazy. So I think if guys can show up and they can embrace technology, give them a great experience, be the professional remodeler, it doesn't matter. You could be a neighborhood contractor or you could be a national franchise. It doesn't make a difference. You can be a professional remodeler. And I'm not talking about a pro that knows how to put the products in, not that Home Depot for the pros. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about running a professional business. And that takes multiple things. It doesn't just take technology. It takes technology and it takes training and it takes good process, like, a 10-step selling process. Yep. Right? For establishing that. You take those 2 things and you put them together, you can come into somebody's house and you can stop. They don't want to participate in the price game. They just think they do. They just think they need to get 3 estimates. It's like imprinted on their brain, and then the government started doing this. Like, I work for the government. We always get 3 estimates, I'm like, well, the government's not super efficient, right? Let's call a spade, right? So, I mean, I just think if you put those things together, quality training, quality people with a quality tech stack, and you want to be the professional remodeler, I think you can get out there and I think you can win more bids on first visits, and probably increase margin because you're not going up against other estimates.
Yeah, with the right technology and the right training, it's that whole first one in, last one in mentality. Mm-hmm. And, you're talking about Uber. One thing I talk about commonly that I think people are not taking advantage of is this whole concept of social proof and third-party reviews, and making sure that you're using every opportunity to gather 5-star reviews from your clients and your customers. And one thing I'm training salespeople to do is right at the point of sale, when emotions are running high, everything's fresh in their mind, have that prospect or that new customer give you a review based on how their experience was with their design consultant. Because how powerful is that? If you're in a home, you're obviously educating a homeowner on all the different things about yourself, your company, your products, and then they get to read third-party reviews with your name in them. Because I talk to companies, how many sales do you get in a year? And they're like, well, 2,000. I'm like, okay, then you have 100 reviews on Google, right? Yeah. So what if every time at the point of sale, you just take a second and have that customer fill out a review based on how their experience was with the design consultant, and let them know you can also fill out a separate review once we've exceeded your expectations on the installation. Yeah. There's just little things like that, making sure you're compiling as much of that information as possible, because that all ties into the Uber story. When I'm looking to get a cab or an Uber, I'm like, okay, this guy's got a 4.9. He's done like 1,200 trips. Seems to be reliable. Yeah.
Clean and fresh. That's what I look for. Cars smell clean and fresh. Good to go. Yeah. Let's get in that thing. I think that's true. I think in the business I owned and operated for 20 years, vast majority of our online reviews came at point of sale. It's when they're excited. Yeah. It's just, when the project's done, they're happy. They shake the project manager's hand. They give you the check, or they pay with their credit card, or, they sign the finance completion certificate, whatever the case may be. And then they go back to life. They disengage really quick. They're no longer in the project. It's complete. Yep. So trying to get that last step, like 2 days later, following up with a customer service call to try to get that review, it's so much harder than when you're in that house. And that you have your sales rep sitting there saying, hey, listen, while I finish filling this out, would you guys mind? I'm going to send you a link on your phone really quick. It only needs to be 15 words, just, 10 words, it'd be great if you mentioned me, and you just give it to them and they do it right there at the table. And again, I'm, beating that drum, but with the right, technology is the easiest place to do that. I mean, asking them to go online, with their own time and leave you a review, it's not going to work. I'm going to send you a link right now. It's going to come to your phone. You press it. You can log right in with Google and you can leave me a review in 5 seconds. That's how you really start to build those reviews. And there's a plethora of review platforms out there. So, pick your poison. They all work well.
Take advantage of that. One thing I used to have my salespeople do that was highly effective. We're always big fans of having the customer sell the job back at the end of the sale, have them sell it back to you, all the reasons they feel comfortable moving forward on the project, right? Well, even further than that, let's get our cell phone out, talk about technology. Literally the camera we have in this freaking device here is better than any camera in existence 10 years ago, but nobody ever uses it. So I'd have my salespeople at the end say, John and Mary, we're always trying to get better at what we do for a living. And one thing that's highly important for me personally, I always like to make it personal, is that we have people sharing with others why they feel comfortable moving forward with us. If you felt I did a good job for you here today, we love it if you could give us a short 20, 30-second little testimonial, simply just explaining why you feel comfortable moving forward on the project. I would greatly appreciate it. And you get like most of the people are comfortable with it. Yeah. And some people even get excited, like the wife goes and dolls up real quick, does her hair, does makeup. But then you have all these videos of people selling back why they felt comfortable moving forward with your company at the point of sale. And what I did is I compiled all those little 30-second, 45-second videos into like a compilation. And that's what my salespeople had the homeowners watching while they were working up their final proposal. While they're doing so the customer is watching all these people explaining. And again, it's continuing to build on the trust and lower the fear right before you're about to slide over that total investment.
Yeah, I went to a IRE. I don't know. I know you guys were at IRE. I don't know if you went particularly, but I went to IRE and I met with this company and they were talking about websites. And they just said something that's just stayed with me. They're like, why? Every website on the world has changed except for home improvements and restaurants. Like when you look at Amazon, you look at any retailer, you look at Zillow, the way the website works is you come in and there's a box.
Yep.
And then you're going to begin searching for whatever's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it, right? So, and they said all that content, like when you go to a website, what do you want to see? You want to check 3 boxes. Do you sell the products? Do you service my areas? Show me the people that you've sold.
Yep.
So that's the 3 methodologies that they're using for these websites. And they're like, what are all these pages and drop downs and content buried back here? It's just not necessary. People want to see, like, here's the jobs that I've done in your neighborhood. Here's videos of the homeowners saying, great job. Yes, we sell your product. Yes, we service you. And it was like, just bury everything else, just get it out of there. Those are the 3 things. So I love that you talk about that because I love that content. And I think it's like we take that content and we're using it at point of sale. That's where we're using it. Look at our reviews, but just think how valuable that content can be if put in the hands pre-sale. The consumer starts somewhere. Maybe they start with a referral. Maybe they start on your website. Maybe they start with a billboard or a Valpak, a trade show, however you hit them. But at some point in time, typically there's some diligence done, even in canvassing. Right. So as a canvassing model, it might start at the door, but then as soon as they schedule that appointment, that person walks away. Most people are probably going to the website to make sure they just didn't sign up with pyramid scheme or something like that.
Yeah.
So they sign up, and what content could you show them that's better than people in their community saying how great the company was?
Yeah.
So I think it's great from a post-sale perspective, but from a pre-sale perspective, I think it's amazing too. So I think a lot is going to change for us over the course of the next few years. I don't think people want to get 3 estimates. I think that they want to go find community contractors. That doesn't mean you can't be a national franchise. It means you have the community feel. You work in my company. I think that they're going to want to spend more time with one contractor and less time with multiple contractors. And I think they're going to look for professional remodelers. You can go to a small boutique restaurant or a small boutique shop, and that boutique shop can be very professional. You just walk in, and as soon as like you see the iPad sitting up on the countertop, and they go to their website, they got QR codes all around the store or whatever, and you're like, oh, they're running this place really, really well, versus like a corner store where it says cash only. That place is going to die. The boutique is going to thrive now. So like I said, whether you're a neighborhood contractor, I think being a professional contractor, being a professional remodeler, not to be confused with being a pro, being a professional remodeler, I think is really going to be very, very important as you go forward. So how do you run a professional business? You think about how do you create trust? How do you create value? How you continue to sell that story? There's been a big disconnect, I think, between marketing and sales and companies. I think you're going to start to see that come together, meaning you called in off the Valpak because it says get your new roof today for $39.99 a month and something like that and blah, blah, blah. And then when you call in, it's like a kind of probably a bait and switch. Well, that's only for 10 squares. You actually have 40 squares. So let me show you how he did the math and yada, yada. I think it's going to start to connect. I think if you start to advertise the things that drive your value, like putting things out there like, hey, you can schedule your appointment online. We have, chat functionality. You can manage your whole process, manage your whole project through our app solution, right? Multiple ways to pay, finance your program through us today, low interest. I think those are the things that you can actually go into the house and deliver. You can sell the trust and marketing. We've served hundreds of homeowners in your community. I think that connecting sales and marketing is going to win a lot too. Where it used to be, let's get our guy in the house and give him a chance. So you say whatever you got to say to get the lead, and then the guy got to go in there and he's got to create the story and then create the sale, right? So, anyway, but I think that's I think the industry's, I think it's going to change a lot over the next few years. I think there'll always be a place for people to conduct and operate businesses like they do today, because there'll always be people that are looking for that experience, right? But I think that we'll start to carve out, a different type of society that wants to have a different type of experience, an Uber type experience, very reliable, an Amazon type experience, a Zillow type experience, a really simplistic way to get your projects done. I think it's easier to buy a house nowadays than it is to get your bathroom remodeled.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
one thing you had mentioned is content, and that's actually a big move I see a lot of larger companies making to build trust in a persuasive way. Where Abby's Windows here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't know if you ever heard of Abby's Windows.
Yeah, I know Abby well.
Yeah, she has her own radio talk show, for crying out loud. And she's like the trusted expert in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for home improvements. Even before they ever call her to get an estimate, she's known throughout the whole city as one of the trusted experts on the subject. So, I mean, just think of that alone, how powerful that is. And then I see a lot of other companies that are making a huge investment in YouTube content and TikTok and social media, where they have all these really professional videos, and it's almost like an HD TV show. People love that stuff, like Home and Garden Television, where they kind of take them through behind the scenes and show them how things are being done, and they educate the homeowner on the process. So stuff like that goes a long way. And again, it doesn't have to be this fancy production, for crying out loud. Again, I hate to bring it up. Just get your phone out and start recording some of your work and talk people through it and educate them. And you put that content out there, and it's amazing what that can do to solidify yourself as the expert in your industry, in your territory. I love that whole concept of content. I think that's one thing that's severely lacking. Because I work with all kinds of home improvement companies, and I ask them, what do you have for testimonials, video testimonials? And I'm talking $100 million companies that don't have a testimonial.
Yeah.
And what do you have for like time lapses and people walking the client through the whole install process? Do you have any of that material available? Because all human beings have to make a decision hypothetically before they ever make it in reality. So the more they can see that content and all their projects being sought through to completion and it being done in a simple, transparent, and reliable fashion, that's going to lower that fear of making their own decision. And it's going to make that positive movie in their mind so much more vivid and rich and strong. And it's going to make the close the natural conclusion.
100%. I always tell people, I'm like, what can you say that your competition can't say? Or that somebody that starts a company tomorrow couldn't say? So like a lot of what people say is like, oh, I'm this, I'm that, I'm a member of the BBB, or, we give price guarantee, or we have lifetime warranties. I could start a company tomorrow, offer a lifetime warranty, a price guarantee, and sign up for the BBB. It means not that the BBB, don't get mad at me, BBB, we're a good partner, but those are things that's kind of the basic foundation of a business. That's what's expected.
Yep.
So what are you saying that they can't say? I mean, if you look at an advertisement, if you look at it, take 30 valve packs and put them on a table, different companies, and say, okay, where's the uniqueness? I mean, they might be unique in color, they might be slightly unique in offer, but like, where's the one that's punching through, that's saying something completely different? Like, hey, it's a different way to purchase, or it's like, don't get 3 estimates, just get one and do it online. Like, whatever your thing is, but just scream. And I'm not advocating for that, but it's like somebody, you have to start cutting through, so, I think everybody has those things inside of them. One of the things our company had was a 13-step production process. And for years, how really important was that to the homeowner, right? The homeowner cared about the products, the warranties, and the price, right? And our service promise. And that's what we would talk about. And then we started taking screenshots of our production process out of our software. And we would take a screenshot of the production process, and we made that into our pitch decks. So we said there's value in this because we wanted them to see it. Hey, this is what it takes. Like, you think it's, hey, sell your roof, give us a check, come out tomorrow and put it on. No, there's 13 things that got to happen. Your HOA needs to be coordinated. You might need a permit in your area, right? We got to order the materials. We got to do the confirmation. We got to schedule the delivery. So it was really taking them down in the depths. It was based off that transparency concept of saying, hey, get into it and show them everything. People use Eagle View a lot with our product, or they'll use Hover and they'll import it. And if it's Hover, maybe they'll show them the 3D rendering, but they don't show them the measure report.
Right.
They don't think it's necessary because the measure report kind of works in the background, plugs everything into our Leap, which is now Sales Pro, and spits it out the backside. And that's a quick way for them to deliver an accurate estimate. That's what they think it is. It's a commodity to the contractor. The value, though, to the homeowner is seeing the diligence in that. Hey, look at this is the measurements I came up with on your roof. Not that this, I know you care about the price, but I wanted you to see this. I mean, if you look at an Eagle View or a Hover report or a Roof Scope report, whichever one you use, they're all beautiful. Yeah. And I think just the homeowner, they don't need to interpret it. You don't have to sit down and go with it for 30 minutes. Just flip through it real quick. It's very impressive. So you're paying for it. Don't just pay for the measurements, pay for that story. So using all that to create a different experience. I mean, we're beating a dead horse. Again, we're pounding that drum, but it's really just, if you're a professional remodeler, you're probably going to use some sort of satellite imagery to measure your roof. It's quick, it's accurate. That doesn't mean you can't be a legacy contractor and go out there and you just use a tape measure.
Right.
But if you're the professional remodeler that uses that, present that and say, hey, here's how we measure your roof to ensure that we have the right amount of materials on the job, because that doesn't cause project delays.
Yeah,
those are the little things that you're paying for.
I realized how powerful that data was to show to the homeowner, especially when I was virtually selling, when I was not physically able to set foot in the house. And this is at the beginning of the pandemic, but by pulling up all those reports and walking the homeowner through that step by step, it allowed me, even in a remote selling situation, to build a tremendous amount of trust and credibility as an expert. 100%. And the fact that we do our due diligence and we have high attention to detail in everything that we do, every step of the process. So I think you should definitely use that to your advantage.
Yeah, and again, so you can move quickly, and it's accurate. So I love that. I think a lot of people probably realize that. I hope that when you go back in home, though, as you start to migrate back in home, keep pulling that thing out. Just give it to them for a second while you're working the price up or whatever you're doing. Or, hey, here, look over your roof, make sure this all looks good to you. Here's your material order report. It's amazing.
Yep. So now, assuming we have all the technology and we have all that stuff in place from phone call to install, we're providing the transparency, all this stuff. There's a lot of different tips and strategies that, of course, that I train salespeople on, because, a lot of people, they talk about building rapport with the homeowner, building rapport. And I always ask people, what does that mean? And a lot of people have a decent definition, but some people just simply they think it just means that they like them. And I say, well, would it be surprising to know that trust has nothing to do with likability? Obviously, I want them to like me, but trust is a whole different animal entirely. I can tell you that there's many people in my life that I like. We have a good time together, but I don't trust them. I wouldn't listen to work on my home or borrow money or watch my kids for the weekend, for example. But one thing that's not talked about enough is empathy, in my opinion. Empathy, and it's simply this deep, innate desire that we all have to be understood. Because a lot of salespeople, they go into a house assuming they have all this stuff in place, but they're just simply talking at the homeowner for hours on end. They're not asking questions. They're not making them feel special, not demonstrate that they understand them and their situation. And that's really the definition of what rapport is, because rapport and trust kind of go hand in hand. When two parties have mutual trust and understanding for one another, that's when they have strong rapport, right? Mm-hmm. But it comes from demonstrating empathy. Now, empathy is not sympathy, though. I say you don't want to have sympathy, because that means you feel that the way your prospects feel, and that could be very dangerous. So steamroll right the hell over you. But empathy simply means you can demonstrate that you understand how they feel. You understand them and their situation.
Yeah. I like when I look at the board here, I think empathy, that serves as the birthplace. I mean, let's skip authenticity, because you can be You cannot have empathy and still be authentic. But I think empathy is the birthplace for integrity and confidence, because if you're empathetic to somebody's situation, you can understand their point of view and where they're coming from. And then so if you are a solution-oriented person, then you want to deliver the integrity, kind of mean what you say, and have the confidence to know that you have the right solution. That comes from understanding their kind of point of view. So with strong empathy, I think you can come strong with be the expert, confidence, and integrity. And I love that. We used to, I think you always say the same thing, get related. What does that mean? Well, I spend a lot of time on warm up. As soon as I walk in, I'm looking for something in the house. I'd have a guy call me, be like, hey man, I'm like, hey, yeah, you sell that thing? He's like, no, I'm out of the house. I'm like, yeah, the house, what happened? He's like, I didn't get a price up. I'm like, you've been there for 2 hours. He's like, man, we just got caught up in talking about this and that. And next thing you know, they had to put the kids to bed, right?
Yeah.
And so we've all been there before. So I think it's important, when you come in, I mean, that relatedness, and getting to know them comes from a place. I mean, they are looking for guidance from you from the time you step on site. You don't want your doctor to walk in and like talk about the deer head on the wall. You want them to talk about the diagnosis, start asking questions, get into the solution, right? It doesn't mean that you can't create a warm up, and I'm fine with that. Like I am mixing in some small talk and down periods, but really coming in, what are you guys dealing with? What are your challenges? Tell me a little bit about your story. How did you find us? What was it about you that called us? Oh, we were referred. I love Mrs. Jones, yada, yada, yada. And then just get right into, understanding the diagnostics of what needs to be done there, and just coming from a place of confidence. I mean, that's what we do. Here's what we want to do today. Here's what a perfect day looks for us in our eyes. What does it look like for you in your eyes? And so we started training that, our goal is to come in and check every box for you and solve your problem. That's what we want to happen here today. I want no stone left unturned. When I leave here, I don't want you to have one question for me.
Right.
I don't want you to have to go online. I don't want you to have to know one thing about what needs to happen in this project. So I love that, man. And empathy is the foundation, for any result, I think. Understanding somebody's point of view and being able to take yourself to that place. That's what all the best leaders do in the world.
Yeah, and the authenticity part is basically when you're talking about yourself, your company, your product, your service, and you're making certain claims about that stuff. That authenticity means you actually believe it. So you actually believe in what you're saying, not that I'm just saying what they want to hear because I'm paid to as a salesperson. So when I truly say that we have the finest this, that, and the other, I'm making all these promises, I mean it in a truly authentic way that's something that I personally believe in. So being true to yourself and not making all these ridiculous promises. And then of course that ties in with integrity. Don't just, all human beings have a built-in BS detector, right? They can tell when you're saying just simply what they need to hear to get a sale versus simply saying what's true and what the right expectations that they should have, having clear, simple, and reliable expectations. So that all kind of ties in together. And of course, we all know confidence sells, and that's from knowing your craft, taking care of yourself. One thing that's not talked about enough, Patrick, is your personal health and wellness and how that plays a role in your sales ability. There's something I've been talking about a lot more, and this is actually information I'm gathering from a good friend of mine, Dr. Injun Chong. He actually created this 4-step program called The Rich Life. And what it is kind of like a 4-legged footstool. It's having balance in your relationships, your income, your contribution, and your health. But one thing he's teaching me is that we actually have 2 brains in our body. And one brain we often neglect is our gut brain, basically our digestive system. So we hear a lot in sales, you sell proportionate to how you feel, right? If you're confident and you feel good, you can radiate that to your prospect. Did you know that 95% of the serotonin in your body is produced first in the gut and then it goes to the brain?
No, I didn't.
So if you don't have a functional digestive system and functional gut health, that actually affects your mood and your ability to transfer that confidence and that positive energy to your customer.
Yeah.
This is why, I'm kind of tying all this in together, but confidence sells. And of course, it also ties into being an expert and being a professional, knowing your craft. People want to do business with people that know what they're talking about. Yeah. One thing I used to assign to my salespeople is making sure they were hands-on at the job sites, watching the windows or siding or the bath or the kitchen being installed step by step, having their own video recordings of that stuff. And there's 2 benefits there. One is, of course, visiting the job site you're the customer's hero at that point, right? So they get to see the salesperson once again, and it shows that you care. You're continuing to build on that trust that they made the right decision. But it helps that salesperson understand forwards and backwards what they're selling, so they can explain it intelligently to people of all different personality types.
Yeah, I think
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
If I have a very analytical customer, someone that's an engineer, and you want to solve them new details, I better be prepared to roll up my sleeves and be the expert and know my product. Because all that trust that I worked so hard to build is going to be shot to hell pretty quickly. If I can't answer basic stuff. It's okay if you need to call somebody to get an answer on something complex, but if you don't know the basic fundamentals of what it is you're there to sell, you're not going to have a lot of luck building trust with your prospect there.
Yeah. I think scalability, when you think about that, like with that authenticity coming into that, because that's always a challenge. A lot of people like me, I was delivering packages. 3 weeks later, I was selling windows.
Yeah.
So even with all the studying in the world, and we didn't have OC University, and these manufacturers hadn't come out with all these programs back then.
Right.
So I think scalability as a business owner, making sure whether it's that 13-step production process, maybe you have project managers, maybe you do a second measure, maybe use the roof satellite imagery, or use some sort of measure report, or maybe use a CAD software in home.
Yep.
So like whenever new guys start for us, they always have a tendency to want to lie. They want to lie about their tenureship within nobody wants to go in the house, but Mrs. Jones, you could potentially be my first customer. You're my first.
I used the rookie card for over a year.
Yeah. So, so people have a tendency to shaping them in a way and letting them know, giving them a story when they're new. You don't have to have 3 years of experience in order to be able to sell a homeowner. What you need is a company that's created a solution for you to be successful within your step in the process. So when you think about somebody that's selling, what am I here to do today? It's it's diagnostic, material selection, pricing, and how are we going to pay for the thing, and company story, right? This is what I need to be an expert in. Right? My company has trained me diligently in this, and I might be stronger in these areas than a contractor that's doing this for 40 years that does everything. He could probably take me to school if we went up on your roof, but that's not what we're doing here today. I got a guy that's going to come out in 2 weeks, and he's going to go up on there in 2 days or whatever, and he's going to go up on there, and I put him up against that guy, but that's not me. I'm not here today. I'm going to use this Eagle View report, and whatever your product you're selling, this is the things that I've been equipped to do. So that way you can really stay in that authentic place. But I do strongly encourage, again, visiting those job sites, because when you get to a place where you can have that kind of area expertise in your specific area, but then be really versed across almost everything. And that only comes with experience, getting to those job sites, understanding what your project managers give you feedback on jobs that you sold, and understanding all that. That's when you get into those legacy closing percentages. And you got guys that are closing 65%, they just go in. I mean, they can't miss, they're closing 70%. These are your $4 million reps. And there's, every company has some of them. And those are the guys that have mastered the art of selling, and the guys that have also they know everything. They know the whole process. They know the company start to finish. But that doesn't mean you can't close at 30, 40%, 45%. Your second day, not your second day, but, when you come out of training as a sales rep, and being able to go in there and kill it with that story. So I think a good combination of those two is key.
Yeah, many of my top salespeople were rookies, brand new out of the gate, their first month at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah.
And I had people that literally didn't even know how to use a tape measure, knew nothing about construction, that in their first year sold over $3 million in business without, breaking a sweat. So
that's it.
With the right sales system, they can certainly make up for a lot of those things. That's for sure.
100%. Because if you want to grow a lot, that's a problem. That's where technology does help with that a lot. I talked to two guys, they came up to me and they wanted to onboard our product, and they were talking about having to go through it. It was a window company, and they were like, man, we need to start using it. And I said, well, you said you need to. Why do you need to? Mm-hmm. And they're like, man, we just can't hire because we sell Marvin, we sell Anderson, we sell Pella, and we sell 2 different vinyl manufacturers, and I cannot teach somebody how to price that, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys, I need to find somebody that's like got five years experience. So they're trying to scale their window company, 2 founders, and they were trying to scale the window company. And they were like, we need something to help so that we can go and get that bartender I was talking to last night that had charisma and swag and personality, is looking for a better life, and they wanted to be able to get that guy. And they're like, man, I can't, it'll take me a year to train that guy the way we do it now. To be able to sell all those products, because it can get really complicated when you're selling wood, versus vinyl, and the ins and how you got to measure everything and all the different features and options. It was crazy. So we need to take all that. We need to get it into a point of sale system that can help blow that information down really, really quick. So having the right process in place. I mean, people that use our products can train their salespeople in a fraction of the time that it takes to train a legacy salesperson. Because, like I said, we used to spend 2 weeks teaching you how to measure. It was like you had to get a wheel, a tape measure, right, and a calculator. That's all you had to come to class with. We gave you everything else, right? But you had to wheel, and it took a long time to teach somebody how to measure a roof accurately. There's a lot of mismeasures there. You start taking those reports and you start blowing them through a point of sale system, and our guys can deliver a good, better, best price after 1 day of training.
Yeah,
1 day of training, So, I mean, that's an accelerator for you, I mean, it really helps.
Yeah, and I can relate to that personally because, back when I was training the sales team here in Madison, Wisconsin, and I had 55 salespeople, we would spend an insane amount of time on pricing and paperwork and filling out all these different documents, handwriting everything, and all the legal jargon and stuff we had to add to all that. And inevitably, there was 5,000 mistakes in their first 6 months out in the field, right? And then trying to reel it all back in, it was an absolute mess. So to have everything where they got to be creative to mess it up, that's essentially the name of the game. Is you got to make it so they have to be truly creative to screw this up. And that's essentially then you can really open the floodgates on recruiting and cast a big net to look for that quality sales talent that maybe doesn't know anything about what it is that you do. And in an accelerated time, you're able to get them in through the training, onboarding, and get them out there selling profitably.
Yeah. What did you do before you came in? I told you I was delivering packages.
Yeah. So this is my first job out of college, but I actually graduated from UW-Whitewater, got a business degree. But my whole childhood, I was in construction. So my father owned a demolition company called RJ's Westside Demolition. So demolishing buildings, things like that. I had a lot of other summer jobs, roofing houses, concrete masonry work, waited tables at several different restaurants. And then I worked for a barge service installing piers and boat lifts. So pretty diverse, but a lot of very hands-on physical labor. And without getting too deep in the weeds, my first job when I graduated high school was actually working road construction for a company called Zignego there in Johnson Creek. But then I decided I wanted to go back to wrestling, go back to college, and then the rest is history. Somehow that took me down a different path, and here I am as a trainer.
It's an amazing experience. I love the industry. You can really change your life.
Well, home improvements is obviously a blessing. It's a very sticky industry. You can show your work a lot better than you could in demolition. I used to feel bad for my dad, right? Because my father was arguably one of the most talented people in the world at tearing down buildings, but he could never show people his work.
Yeah.
It's like, you see that empty parking lot there? There's once a building that your dad tore down. It was really awesome. Show anybody the finished product.
Not a crumb over there, man.
Yeah, right. Look how clean that parking lot is. I'm like, this is boring, Dad.
That's amazing. That's the after.
Yeah. So now, just to make sure I cover all the bullet points here, we have an acronym that we train on at Grosso University, and all these things tying together to a certain capacity. But this is the SRLR acronym. Is simply smile, repeat their name, look them in the eye, and keep them comfortable and relax them. So, and all this ties back to your confidence, your expertise, how knowledgeable you are. Of course, if you don't know what you're saying and you're a little timid or uncertain, you're going to avoid eye contact. But making sure that you smile, you make this a positive, fun experience. They don't want to be lectured for an hour and a half, 2 hours, right? Make sure that you maintain that strong eye contact. And, I always train my salespeople, at least the majority of the time, I want to be looking at the prospects in the eyes. 70% is the ideal ratio because you can overdo any technique. You don't want to look at them to the point where you never once take your eyes off them, right? You're filling out your paperwork and it's like, what the hell's wrong with this person? First name basis. This is one thing, admittedly for me, I kind of sucked at early in my sales career. But, you know, you do Dale Carnegie training. He always says one of the best way to win over friends and influence people is by using their name. It's like sweet music to their ears. I'd have it several times where I'd be filling out the contract or filling out the agreement at the end. And then I'm looking at my email. What the hell are the names again? Like I would forget their names. I was terrible at that. But get on that.
You got to learn that quickly in the industry, man. You got to remember people's names.
Yeah, you do. So right before you get out there, saying their name over and over, internalize it, right? Have it written down in the paperwork ahead of time. Part of the preparation step, and then keep them comfortable and relaxed. So we have a lot of strategy in our sales system deliberately to keep them comfortable and relaxed, so they don't feel like they have any requirement to make any buying decisions whatsoever while they're there, to keep their guard down. So and there's a lot of strategy that it would be a whole separate webinar on, but these are some of the little things. And then the last thing I want to talk about is asking questions. This is something that admittedly salespeople suck at. And we know this a lot more, for a matter of fact, nowadays, especially because of Rilla being out in the streets now. We have thousands of recordings from sales reps in the house. And do you know what the average talk ratio is? What percentage of the time salespeople are talking in the house on average?
Oh, 90%.
Yeah, you're really close. So the talk ratio is over 80% plus, okay, on average. And this is thousands of sales encounters. Now, if you were to engineer the perfect talk ratio, what do you think that would look like? Like what percentage of the time the salesperson's talking versus the prospect?
I want to say give you the easy answer, 50-50.
50-50, in a perfect world, you would think that'd be good. You know, my goal is to get it close to that 60-40, right?
I was going to go 60. I was thinking about I was thinking about a similar scenario, like when you go into the doctor's office, I need him to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then I want the right amount of response. It feels like a 50, I talked for 5 minutes.
Yes.
Maybe they did some tests and looked around. Yeah. And then I want him to take 5 to 10 minutes to give me some feedback. So I feel like that's the right ratio, but it's definitely not 90-10.
Right, exactly.
It's definitely I need to tell you why I'm here, man.
So we are listening to recordings where salespeople have a 20 to 25 minute monologue. So talking for 25 minutes straight without asking a single question.
That's painful. Can you imagine
one of the most important sales strategies in the world is your ability to ask questions. Questions are the answer. Selling is not telling. And what I train my sales pros at is anything you tell your prospects, they can take as an opinion and they tend to resist. And a lot of times telling them something could be an argument. However, when they say it, they own it. So the name of the game is asking the right open-ended and closed-ended questions and make this a conversation, not an interrogation, so I can get them to open up to me and tell me. And it also ties back into everything else we're talking about here, building trust, understanding, empathy. You have to get really good at asking questions. And what some salespeople don't understand is this is something that I need to take responsibility for preparing in advance. I can actually prepare in advance, just like a comedian can prepare the whole stand-up comedy act, what questions I ask and when and how. Some of the best sales meetings I ever had, Patrick, is where I would take my salespeople through the whole company story, the product evolution, product presentation, and we would brainstorm as a mastermind group. What questions can we ask on this slide, that slide, this slide, to get them talking, to get them to open up, to get them telling us versus us telling them, right?
Yeah.
And that's a very good use of time. I highly recommend everybody spend the time doing that because we shouldn't be anywhere near 80% plus 90-10, like you said. Ideally 50-50, at worst 60-40. And take a wild guess what we're seeing from the top performers consistently in the industry. Is they're much better at making this whole thing a conversation and asking questions. You know, there's a reason the Lord gave us one mouth and 2 ears, right?
Understanding when a closed-ended question versus open-ended questions. I think that really helps because if you think about it, everybody's coming in, where's that happening? It's either you're coming in and you're going right to the pitch. So there's no assessment, there's no analysis, what's going on, right? So you just come in and it's here's my products, here's my pitch book, and it's just boom, boom, boom. And you go all the way through and then you put your price on the table and then here come the objections. And then here come 20-minute monologues on the backside of every objection. Yeah. When you get an objection, the first thing you should do is ask 3 or 4 questions. Mm-hmm. That's it. Somebody says, well, there's this, we got an estimate from somebody else and they're lower. Question number 1, who is it? All right, 20-minute monologue on how they're going to rip you off, right? And that's what you listen. It's painstaking, right? So instead of question number 1, who is it? Question number 2, what did you like about them? Question number 3, what did you like about me? Question number 4, okay, so if we were the same price, which one would you hire? So I just think it's those, teaching, because you have to think about those hot moments of where are those monologues happening, and where is the opportune moment to kind of be that authority. If you think about that doctor's visit, what's going on? I'm here to listen. I got my pad on my right. Okay, we're going to run a few tests. I'm going to come back. Now I'm going to deliver some stuff. Do you have any questions about what we said? So there's these, understanding where there should be, where it's okay to just, you got to get your thing out. You got to say it. Maybe it is a 10-minute dialogue on, let me, like you said, company a story or a product pitch or something like that. So I think that's really good, that exercise of going around and saying, hey, this feels like a place where we can talk for 10 minutes. And maybe it is. Maybe it is a good place. Okay, great. Where's the next place? All right, this is a place we definitely want to ask some questions then, and stacking your sales pitch that way. So,
simplest form, the person who is asking the questions is the one who controls the conversation. So if your customer is asking you more questions than you are, they're controlling the conversation, and they're actually being the agent of influence, not you. Yeah. So if you want to be the agent of influence the conversation, the direction in which you want it to go, that comes from you being able to ask the right questions throughout the sales encounter, not just in the beginning when I'm trying to get information. I'm talking the whole sales encounter. Yeah. So from A to Z to the bitter end, like you said, even in objection handling mode, when I'm in the closing sequence, instead of just trying to talk my way out of an objection, ask questions as a way of gathering the information to get to the root origin of the true objection, what's holding them back. Siphoning through all the smoke screens and the reflex responses and things of that nature. So
most people don't think of communication as a two-way street. They don't think of communicating, of hearing and listening. It's not like a balance. Like, I'm going in to communicate something, that means this. It doesn't mean this. So it's not, that's farther from the truth. It's like, hey, we're not being communicated to. Does that mean you're not talking enough, or does that mean you're not listening enough? Because there's a group of people that the communication isn't good. So there's got to be talkers and there's got to be listeners, and it's got to go back and forth. So, understanding that you're trying to communicate something to your homeowner doesn't mean that you have one method to do it. Communication comes from both listening and hearing, not to mention, physical presence and all that stuff, but just in its elementaryest form, communication is is hearing something or speaking something or reading something, right?
Yeah, one thing I talk about often in sales is actually practicing true deep listening, because one thing salespeople suck at is listening, right? So it's not just listening to what they're saying, it's listening with your ears, eyes, and intuition. So you're listening to what they're saying, you're looking at their face. So study their body language and their facial expressions, because sometimes what they're saying doesn't necessarily match what their body's telling you, their eyes are telling you, right? Yeah. And then, of course, we have this crazy ability as human beings to also sense emotion behind what they're saying. So be diligent about how does their tone of voice, what is the emotion behind what they're telling me? Is there a little uncertainty there? What's their face telling me? And of course, what am I hearing? Is it all matching? Or is there a disconnect there? Yeah. And that also comes from you being an expert, prepared in advance, knowing what you're going to say, knowing the system well enough where I'm not so concerned about what I'm supposed to say. I know that already. That's in the bag because I've rehearsed this a million times. Now I'm focusing on what are they trying to tell me? What am I reading? Am I truly understanding them, right? Am I truly understanding how they feel, what's going on underneath the surface? Because your prospect, your homeowner is just like an iceberg. 80% is beneath the surface. I need to get to the root of that. And that comes from asking questions and truly listening and layering those questions with relevant, open-ended questions to get more information. So
yeah, there's something called active listening. It helps open up that, we call it generous listening, deep listening, generous listening. Yes. Generous listening is listening for the purpose to listen. And then typically what you do is you feedback. Here's what I heard you say, and this is a quick summary of the synopsis. And that makes people feel really good because they know you listen. Automatic listening is what prevents that. Automatic listening is the fact that as you're a salesperson, you go in the house and as soon as they start talking, like we're all guilty of it. Like you get one sentence into your 5-minute monologue and I can already cut you off and solve your problem, right? Yeah. It's like, I know what you're going to say, heard it before, right? So we shut down listening because as soon as we pick up what we think they're trying to say, then our mind is busy creating our rebuttal or our response inside of our mind. And then we're no longer focused on listening to them anymore. So our eyes start to change, our facial expressions start to change, and we give up what the greatest thing about listening is listening is really that foundation for trust, right? So, you're so worried about your quick, snappy comeback because you use this on the last person and it's going to work, that you forget that the best thing you could probably do is listen to them with true intent.
Yes.
And then feed that back to them and say, here's what I heard you say.
Yep. Exactly.
And then say, could I offer an opinion? And you ask that question. And then you trust me, your brain's fast enough. You don't need to work your opinion up the whole time they're talking. You can just be with them on the conversation and your brain will work that thing. And especially if you're eating, you got the good health and your serotonins are high, you'll fire that thing right out, right? So It's funny, that's the thing. The blocker to deep listening is the automatic listening, which is, I already know what you're gonna say. I don't even need to listen anymore. I got it.
Yep.
And we put the blinders on, and we all do it. I do it with my family. I do it everywhere, Yeah. So, but very important stuff. Great stuff, man.
Yeah. So we can talk about this for hours, but I just want to end this. Are there any new things that Leap is coming out with, or some new integrations, or new features and benefits of the technology that can plug into everything we're talking about here?
So thanks for asking that, because we actually just made some really big changes. So what we're doing is we actually shifted. So I think when people think of Leap, they historically think of Leap as that kind of point of sale estimating and software tool. And as most people know, we acquired Job Progress a year ago, a little over a year. I guess a few years feels like it, but a year ago. And the point of that was, okay, now we can control that inside the house process, that customer facing process, and we can also control the back end office, the production and the reporting and things of that nature. So we recently went through a little bit of a rebrand. So when you think of our platform, our core platform is Leap, and we kind of rebranded the original Leap underneath of the tool called Sales Pro. Yeah. So our intent is to continue to grow our core platform, which is Leap. And the way I think about, and then develop a series of pro products. So the way I think about a core platform versus a series of pro products is this. A core platform does everything you want it to do at some level of efficiency that's not like 100%. Mm-hmm. If you think about like Salesforce, like you can use Salesforce for marketing automation, but if you really want to advance your marketing automation, you still use Salesforce and you bring in like a Marketo, or you bring in a Pardot, right? You like bring in something over top of it. So in our industry, the Leap platform is going to cover all your basic needs, from marketing to sales, reporting, basic production functionality. However, if you really want to level up in an area, you're really like, hey, I like the basic functionality within the core product that I get, but we really want to advance our sales teams. We'd like to look at Sales Pro, which is a really much more robust tool for people that want that area. We'd also like to maybe explore Marketing Pro. We like the basic functionality within the Leap platform, but we really want to go hard on marketing automation, right? So we want to level that up. So areas investing. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our core product to a really strong offering that customers can operate their business from soup to nuts on, and then really saying, okay, what are those pro areas that people are really looking to double down on? Like, what is really driving the business from kind of operating a great business into the stratosphere? Yeah. And we try to keep in mind neighborhood contractor and national franchise. And that's what we think about, and I don't want to make our national franchises make them feel like they're not neighborhood contractors, but it's a strong, people understand what you're saying when you say it. Like, how can we appeal to the largest companies, and how can we appeal to, the guy that's got, hey, it's only 3 of us. We work in a small area out here in Wisconsin. We service about, 300-400 customers a year, and we want to be a really professional remodeler. We want to give our customers a great experience. We know technology is at the forefront of that. So we want to bring that into our business. So building solutions that can accommodate that person, while also building solutions that can accommodate a national franchise operating in 20 states, with 500 sales reps out there. So that's really what we're focused on. So we got a lot of exciting things coming. We're investing in reporting heavily right now. Everybody's really into the analytics now and the ability to just be able to get your data, right? To get your data and model that data the way you want it. So we want to make sure we really invest in those areas, because all those little points, how long does it take us to get a job from pre-production to post-production? How long does it typically take us from the time they contacted us to time of estimate, to time of close, hopefully one day, but to time of close, right? So being able to give everybody that deep analytics is a big priority for us, And so, anyway, thanks for asking. So there's a lot going on. If you, obviously just go to leap2digital.com. And again, I always say this, we called it leap for a reason, because adopting technology it's not easy. It's kind of a leap, so, when especially if you're a smaller contractor, if you're larger, you're probably already using some, so it might be a migration, but for smaller contractors that are really bringing in this, trying to embrace the software. I mean, now they're, going to the Fast Remodeler and I think it's in Baltimore. And Fast Remodeler is, it's a technology conference for home improvement contractors, right? So It's out there. So take the leap, use some technology. I'd love it if it was ours, but use some, be the professional remodeler for your customers and, give them a great experience,
Awesome. Well, we appreciate that. And, since, I first started hearing about this whole concept of going paperless, and this may be just from my view, but Leap just seems to be leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other people and what they're doing. So I always commend you guys and your innovation and always trying to be trailblazers in that respective division in the industry. So you're just making it easier for contractors to grow and scale successful, profitable businesses. And contractors, I think, should be grateful that this is even available. And if you're not embracing this technology, make sure you get a hold of Leap. Get on the bandwagon here of embracing technology, because in my opinion, if you don't start embracing these things, you're just simply not going to be able to survive and thrive in the coming years and the coming decades to come. So I think it's going to be necessary. More people are going to actually be expecting this as your competition's coming in really professional with all the greatest technology and able to make this a simple, transparent experience. So,
thanks so much for having me, Dominic.
So I just want to thank you, Patrick, for your time. And we always open up at the end of these pre-recordings with a couple of minutes of live Q&A. So if there's any questions that you have for Patrick or myself, make sure you do put those in the chat box. But we appreciate you taking time out of your day. And as always at Grosso University, yes, you are a closer.